Have you ever finished a negotiation, maybe with a potential client or, a new vendor, and you walk away feeling like you left something pretty significant on the table?
Oh, definitely.
Like you could have gotten better terms, but you just weren't, quite sure how to push for them.
That's such a common feeling, a really common hurdle for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And that sense of unease, it often comes from not having a clear strategy, right? Or maybe kind of inadvertently stepping into some well-known negotiation traps.
Traps that are maybe easier to fall into when you're busy building a business.
Exactly. You're juggling so much.
Well, you're definitely in the right place today. We're dedicating this deep dive specifically to powerful negotiation tips tailored for entrepreneurs.
Welcome to your marketing department, where we share the best tips for marketing your small business. And the full link to this topic is down in the description. Be sure to subscribe so that you never miss our latest update.
And we're pulling our insights from Unscrewed Marketing. That's led by Vicky Wu.
Vicky Wu. Okay, tell us a bit about her background.
Well, Vicky's perspective comes from, get this, 30 years of really diverse experience. She's dealt with Fortune 500 companies, worked with multi-million, even multi-billion-dollar organizations. And she's also learned negotiation from, really resource-constrained nonprofits.
That's quite a range. So high-level corporate down to nonprofit hustle.
Precisely. And now she's focused on helping entrepreneurs apply those same, high-level effective strategies, but without all the corporate jargon.
Love that. And she promises powerful, no-fluff negotiation strategies.
Yes, that's the line.
So our mission today, let's cut straight to the most important nuggets, the key knowledge from this source to help you approach your next deal with hopefully more confidence.
And walk away with a better outcome, definitely.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Why is negotiation, why is it so critical for entrepreneurs? Not just nice to have, but critical.
Yeah, good question. The source really makes it clear. It's a core skill, something you use constantly.
Like with clients, scope, price.
Clients, vendors, negotiating terms, hammering out details with potential partners. It's everywhere. It's way more than just haggling over price. It's really foundational. It's about communicating the value you actually bring. Being able to stand firm on your priorities, the things that really matter, and finding ways to create agreements where ideally both sides feel they've gained something, a real win-win.
And without these skills, common, maybe costly mistakes.
Oh, definitely. Preventable mistakes, like undervaluing your own services or products.
So easy to do when it's your baby, right? Your passion project.
Totally. Or giving in too quickly, just wanting to close the deal, get it done.
I've been there.
Or maybe just failing to set and communicate clear boundaries right from the start.
And any of those can really hit your bottom line, your business's sustainability.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if it's that critical, where do we even begin to build good negotiation skills?
It all starts with preparation. I know it sounds obvious, maybe.
But it's probably more involved than people think.
Exactly. Being truly well prepared before any conversation about terms or figures even starts. It's non-negotiable, ironically.
Right. So what does that level of preparation actually look like?
Okay, so you need to clearly define your ideal outcome. What's the absolute best case scenario for you?
Your dream deal.
Kind of, yeah. But also, you need to identify the range of potential outcomes you could actually live with.
Okay.
And crucially, nail down your walkaway point. What's the absolute minimum you'll accept before you say, nope, this deal isn't for me?
Knowing your bottom line. So having that plan B gives you power.
Yeah.
Stops you feeling desperate.
Precisely. It prevents you from feeling backed into a corner, forced into a bad deal. But prep goes deeper.
Okay.
You also need a really solid understanding of your own strengths and weaknesses specifically for this negotiation.
Right. Context matters.
And just as vital, you've got to genuinely try to understand the other party. What do they need? What motivates them? What are their expectations?
Getting inside their head a bit.
Yeah, having that informed perspective helps you avoid making impulsive decisions under pressure. You're not just reacting.
I remember the source specifically mentioned writing things down, physically writing them. What were the key things?
Yes. Putting pen to paper, it really solidifies your thinking. You should definitely write down, 1, your ideal outcome.
Got it.
2, your walkaway point, the absolute bottom line.
Okay.
And 3, your negotiation leverage. What unique value, what expertise, what resource do you bring that the other party genuinely needs or, really wants?
Leverage. Understanding that is powerful.
Incredibly powerful. Identifying it, understanding it.
Makes sense. It's not just about what you want, but what value you offer them.
Yeah.
Okay, preparation sounds like step 0 and 1. What comes next?
Yeah.
After that foundation.
Once you're prepared, flexibility becomes really essential.
Flexibility.
Yeah, the ability to stay kind of agile during the negotiation itself, to find creative solutions that maybe satisfy both sides in ways you didn't initially foresee.
But how do you stay flexible without just rolling over, giving in on everything?
Good point. It means staying open-minded, right? Open to alternative ways to structure the deal. Maybe identifying multiple potential proposals before you even start talking.
So you have options ready.
Exactly. Gives you options to present, room to adjust during the conversation. And critically, you need to have already prioritized your own interests back in that preparation stage.
So you know what's truly important versus what's nice to have.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know which points are core goals you really can't compromise on, and where you have some wiggle room, where you can make concessions that might be valuable to them, but maybe less critical for you.
Okay, that makes sense. So preparation, flexibility, and I'm guessing confidence plays a pretty big role too.
It really does. Projecting confidence, it significantly influences the whole dynamic and the perceived value you bring.
Yeah.
And it's not about being aggressive or, arrogant. It's more about quiet assurance in your value and your preparation.
So how does the source say an entrepreneur can actually project that? Like practically?
Well, it involves using assertive communication,
Okay.
which means clearly and respectfully stating your needs, your boundaries, your value proposition.
Respectfully is key there.
Absolutely. It also means knowing your worth, like deep down, and being able to articulate it effectively. And importantly, maintaining composure.
The keeping cool part.
Yeah. Keeping emotions in check, staying calm, staying focused on the substance, even if things get a little tense.
That composure part sounds like it takes practice.
It definitely can.
Okay, so beyond talking effectively, the source really stresses listening, active listening.
Absolutely fundamental. You just cannot understand the other party's true position or their underlying needs or where they might be flexible if you're not truly listening.
Right, not just waiting for your turn to talk.
Exactly that.
So what are some techniques for active listening the source mentions?
Well, making an effort to reflect and summarize what you hear them say, that's key. It shows you're engaged, for one. It confirms you actually understood them correctly, and it makes them feel heard, which builds rapport. Also, paying full attention without interrupting. Easier said than done sometimes. And don't be afraid to ask clarifying questions. Make sure you're really grasping their points accurately, not just filling in blanks with assumptions.
And I like the point the source added here that communication is two-sided. Yes, listen well, but also make sure you're communicating clearly in a way the other person can actually understand or needs to hear it.
Exactly right. It's a dialogue, not a monologue, or worse, two monologues just happening near each other.
Yeah. Okay, and finally, in this foundational section, the source mentions building relationships.
Yeah. Strong, positive relationships, they can really impact the ease and success of negotiations, especially if you think you'll be interacting with this person or company again in the future.
Builds trust, I guess.
Totally. It builds a foundation of trust.
So how do you actually foster those relationships in a business setting?
Well, maintain regular communication with key stakeholders, even when you're not in a formal negotiation.
Just keeping touch points.
Yeah, build trust through just being consistently honest and transparent in your dealings, and actively look for common ground.
Finding shared interests.
Shared interests, goals, anything that can serve as a kind of collaborative starting point.
Okay, so let me try and recap that foundation. Prepare like crazy, stay flexible, project calm confidence, listen actively while also communicating clearly for them.
Right.
And build those relationships. That feels like a solid base.
It really is. Those are the bedrock principles.
Okay, so the source then shifts a bit to talk about common scenarios where entrepreneurs really need these skills.
Yeah.
What were some of those key opportunities?
Well, securing funding is a huge one. Negotiating terms with investors or, lenders.
Definitely high stakes there. What else?
Partnership agreements. Figuring out how to structure a collaboration so it actually benefits both parties fairly.
Yeah, getting that right up front is crucial.
Absolutely. And then, of course, sales contracts. That's a daily reality for so many entrepreneurs.
Right. Juggling customer expectations, getting terms that work for you, but also keeping that customer happy long term.
Exactly. Maintaining that positive relationship for future business.
Okay. Now, this next part, lessons learned not just from theory, but from real, sometimes tough personal experience.
Yes. The lessons learned the hard way. These are gold.
Okay. The first one is don't present your best offer first.
This one really hits home for a lot of people. The source explains that, especially for folks who maybe process things internally first, perhaps more introverted types, there's this tendency to meticulously calculate what they think is the best, the most logical, the fairest offer, and then they present that right up front.
They've done the math, figured out the optimum point.
Exactly. They've done the hard work in their head, and they put it out there first.
Okay, so why is that a trap? If it's genuinely your best calculated offer, why hold back?
Because the other party, almost always expects that your initial offer is just that, an initial offer, a starting point, an opening bid.
They assume there's wiggle room.
Right. They anticipate the negotiation will involve moving from your initial position. So if your first offer is already your absolute best or your bottom line,
You've got nowhere to go.
exactly, you've left yourself zero room to maneuver. You have nothing less critical you can concede that might feel like a win to them.
This links perfectly to that thermostat analogy. Can you walk us through that one? It was so relatable.
Oh, it's brilliant. So relatable. Okay. So the author and their spouse had different temperature preferences for the bedroom. Classic battle, right?
Totally.
The author liked it cooler, say aiming for 65. The spouse liked it warmer, aiming for maybe 80.
Okay, clear difference.
So the author, doing their internal logical processing, calculates what seems like a fair compromise. Set the thermostat to 70F.
Right in the middle of the thermostat settings.
Sort of, but they reasoned the 70F setting would likely result in a bedroom temp around 75F, leaning slightly towards the spouse's preference, but still tolerable for the author, a calculated best compromise.
Okay, sounds logical on paper.
Totally rational, calculated approach.
Dumb.
But from the spouse's perspective, if one person offers 70F and the other wants 75F, well, the natural negotiation, the compromise, lands somewhere between those two numbers.
Like 72 or 73F.
Exactly, maybe 73F. They saw the 70F offer as just an opening bid, not the final calculated position. The author had started with their endpoint.
And couldn't backtrack. They couldn't say, okay, well, actually, I wanted 60, so let's meet at 73 from 70, 75. They were stuck at 70.
Precisely. They couldn't easily show movement from their real starting point to negotiate towards that 73F compromise. They started where they planned to end.
Wow. You gave away your negotiation space immediately.
That's it. The power in negotiation often comes from having those less critical points you can give away, things you can concede. That lets you secure or keep the things that really matter most to you. If your first offer uses up all your room on the less critical stuff,
You're left fighting only over the big things you didn't want to move on anyway.
you got it. You have nothing left but the crucial things.
That makes so much strategic sense. Applying that simple thermostat war to business. Brilliant. Okay, what's the second big lesson learned the hard way?
This one is not knowing, or maybe more accurately, not asking for what you actually want.
Seems incredibly basic on the surface,
Yeah.
but I can totally see how this could be a real sticking point.
It really is. And the source gets into this with a pretty powerful personal story.
Oh, yeah.
It describes this history of difficulty just asking for gifts, stemming from past experiences that kind of train the brain just not to want things.
To avoid disappointment.
Yeah, essentially, to avoid potential disappointment or maybe feeling like a burden.
Wow, okay, that runs deep. That's not just business strategy, that's personal wiring.
Exactly. But the breakthrough, interestingly, came with a simple request for a new tablet. Just asking for it.
And what was the realization there?
The realization was that clearly articulating a genuine need or want, surprisingly, it created a win-win situation, even in that personal context.
A win-win for getting a gift. How does that work?
Well, the giver, her husband in this case, actually felt good. He could give something he knew was truly wanted and needed. It took the stress off him, the guessing game.
Relieving the giver's anxiety.
Right. And the receiver obviously got something they genuinely needed and would actually use. So win-win.
Okay, I see the win-win now. And how does this loop back to the business negotiation table?
The philosophy is just absolutely essential there, too. You simply cannot effectively negotiate for your needs and desires if you haven't clearly defined them for yourself before you even start the conversation.
It circles right back to preparation again.
Directly back to preparation. It's fundamental.
And it's not just about defining your absolute minimums, your walkaway points.
No, exactly. You need that clear list of everything you'd ideally like to achieve or get from the negotiation, including those things that would be, nice bonuses but aren't strict necessities.
The wants as well as the needs.
Yes. That comprehensive list is what gives you that crucial room to negotiate that we were just talking about. It gives you points you can potentially trade away.
Having that full wish list gives you bargaining chips, basically.
It absolutely does. It gives you things to work with to find that beneficial middle ground.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So once you grasp these core principles, prep, flexibility, confidence, listening, relationships, and these really crucial hard-won lessons, how does you keep getting better? Negotiation isn't exactly a one-and-done skill.
No, definitely not. It's a skill that needs ongoing refinement, for sure. Actively seeking feedback after negotiation.
Like debriefing with yourself.
Yeah, taking time to reflect what went well, what could I have done differently, and maybe even asking a trusted colleague for their perspective, if that's appropriate.
Getting an outside view. What about practice?
Role-playing. Sounds a bit formal maybe, but it's actually really practical.
Yeah.
Engaging in role-playing exercises, in a lower-stakes setting can help you practice different approaches, build confidence, and kind of refine your language before you're in a live, high-pressure negotiation.
Building that muscle memory.
Exactly.
And just generally staying informed.
Yeah, just keeping up with current industry trends, understanding maybe new negotiation techniques that are emerging, and just continuously learning. It all enhances your effectiveness over the long run.
Okay. So pulling all this together, Vicky Wu's insights. Effective negotiation for entrepreneurs. It really isn't about being the loudest or the most aggressive person in the room, is it?
Not at all. Not even close. As her approach really highlights, it's much more of a strategic process. It's built on a blend of, solid preparation, clear, two-sided communication, and that adaptability, that flexibility to find creative solutions.
Right. So by really honing these skills, getting prepared by defining your ideal outcome, your walkaway point, your leverage, mastering flexibility, projecting that calm confidence, listening deeply while communicating clearly for them.
And building relationships.
And crucially, internalizing those hard-won lessons, like having room to negotiate by not starting with your absolute best offer.
So important.
And knowing precisely what you want and need, the whole list, before you even sit down.
If you do all that, you absolutely position yourself to secure more advantageous deals, build stronger business relationships, and ultimately, propel your business forward more effectively.
It's really striking how much of this applies way beyond just formal business contract.
It really does, doesn't it? It applies everywhere.
Which kind of raises an interesting final thought for you, the listener, to maybe mull over.
Yeah.
Where else in your daily life, maybe not just the big business deals, but smaller interactions, even personal ones, where might you be leaving potential value on the table?
Good question. Simply because maybe you haven't clearly defined for yourself what you actually want. Or maybe because you've already shown your entire hand, given away your best position, without even realizing you did it.
Something to think about, for sure. How much are we leaving behind just by not being intentional?
Most entrepreneurs keep guessing. My clients, they get clarity and results. The Unscrewed Room is where serious entrepreneurs go when they're done chasing shiny tactics and are ready to grow smarter. If that sounds like you, the wait list for the Unscrewed Room is open. Visit unscrewedmarketing.com now to check it out. You don't need another course. You need a strategy that works.